Welcome back. 17 days to the repeat poll. NASA has been conspicuous in its absence from the campaign trail, with Raila Odinga, its flag bearer, scheduled to jet out of the country later this week. The perception that the opposition is neither keen nor ready for this month's poll is gaining currency. By contrast, Jubilee continues with its heightened political campaigns across the country. NASA demonstrations are in the meanwhile set to continue tomorrow, while Jubilee-sponsored election laws amendments are on the fast-track lane for debate this week in Parliament. Right now on Game Plan 2017, we speak to Majority Leader in the Senate, Kipchumba Murkomen, and Suna East Member of Parliament, Junaid Mohammed. Thank you both for making time for us tonight. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is Game Plan 2017 on Twitter. You can text us on 22422. Junaid, I'll start with you. I mean, it's 17 days now to the polls. Some would have thought both NASA and Jubilee would be out campaigning. We know NASA, for example, cancelled their tour of Mombasa that was to happen over this weekend up to today. And again, people already raising eyebrows, and I'm sure you've heard about this, that Raila Odinga is leaving the country on Tuesday, I don't know, for 2 or 3 or 4 days. There's been rumors, in fact, even 4 weeks. You're here, of course, you can explain that. That it actually mean he's not keen on the election, that now it's cementing the NASA's stance that no reforms, no election.
That's true. Actually, NASA is very keen on the election. And NASA is willing to participate in the election. And the reason why you are seeing the way NASA is behaving is because Jubilee has become rogue. In the sense that Jubilee now, you know, this is like a football match, a football game, where we have the rules, we have the referee and everything. Jubilee wants to manage everything. They want to set the rules. You can see they are changing the laws in Parliament. They want to have the referee on their side. They are managing the IEBC. They don't want any changes done in the IEBC as per the Supreme Court ruling. So we are seeing a situation. We have realized that this country it's not anymore about the voter. It is the people who count the votes that matter. So we know that we have the people. We know where our voters are. And they can turn up tomorrow if there's an election, and we'll still win. But their votes need to be counted. Their votes should be counted. So we are not seeing the scenario where the votes will be counted properly, they will be free and fair and accountable as required by the Constitution. So it's an exercise in futility to run around the country to tell people to come out and vote. And when the votes arrive at Bomas of Kenya, it is overturned, and you don't get, there's no equity, there's no equality.
How long, just to be clear, will Odinga be away?
He has engagements outside the country. I can't tell you how long he'll be away for now, because you know I'm not his spokesperson. But what I know, the information I have as a member of his party, is that he has engagements out of the country beginning this week, mid of the week. Okay. And I don't know how long it will take.
It will take. Yeah. By the time he leaves, it'll be about 15 or 14 days, if you're talking about mid this week, to the election. If I was to compare that with what happened prior to the August elections, at that time there were heightened campaigns, both from NASA and Jubilee. Are you now saying that if your demands are met even a day to the election will be held? There's no deadline you're working with?
If our reducible minimum...
Regardless that you haven't been campaigning, it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. Our voters are ready. If our reducible minimums are met on 25th, our voters will come out and vote on 26th.
Let me get Murkomen's response on this.
First of all, Hussein, we are where I think I was sitting in the Supreme Court on 1st of September. And once I listened to the judgment, I knew this is where we were going to go. And as Jubilee, we've been preparing for this. As a matter of fact, Junaid is just not being candid enough. Raila Odinga has made up a decision. He has made up his mind. He has a decision to pull out of the elections.
You know this?
I mean, how do you know this?
It's time will prove. Let me just tell you.
No, are you speculating, or
no, I'm not speculating.
For a fact?
I'm just saying for a fact.
Because what Raila is doing is not pulling out of the election. He's telling you there will be no election.
And that's why. And let me.
We'll come to that. Okay.
That's why I was very quiet when Junaid was.
Okay, just
because the reason Hussein I accepted to come here today is because the discussion of today is the events that are going to unfold this week are very critical insofar as the constitutional and governance order of the country is concerned. Raila Odinga has made up his mind. He is pulling out of the race, maybe formally tomorrow or latest Wednesday. He is now in consultation with his people in his village. Tomorrow he will have other consultations. He's either going to announce tomorrow or Wednesday that he's pulling out of the race. Why is he pulling out of the race? Initially,
I mean, you'll go on, but I just find this interesting. The Junaid here says, Junaid, who is closer to Raila, I assume, he says he doesn't know, and he says he's not even the spokesman, but you're saying for a fact it will happen tomorrow.
We have only time,
with Raila today.
And I've told you, we have time. Time is in 3 days.
Time will tell.
Me right or wrong.
Okay.
Yeah? The reason why he's pulling out is this. One is that he knows he doesn't have the numbers. Even if he goes up or down, he can't get the numbers. So in his mind, he hoped, and I hope you'll give me the time you gave Junaid to explain this. In his mind, he hoped that when he said all these IBC things, he was asking the impossibilities. And there is an interpretation of the Constitution he was waiting, that if he says he will pull out of the race, what the next step will be that there will be no election on 26. Now, there is the reason why he's still consulting up to now is not announced is because there are bottlenecks to that. Number one, we are not for sure that the candidates who are going to run for president is Uhuru and Ruto and Raila Kalonzo only. They would still be Kuru or court, and the court is going to make the decision hopefully this week. Number two is that he's not also sure about there are 3 cases in court. One saying that we should protect the IEBC, they must run the race. You have the one for Honorable Kosing that makes it clear that if someone pulls out of the race, the one who is remaining, if it's only one, should be declared the president. There is another interpretation from the provisions of the Elections Act that anyone who pulls out of the race late in the day cannot have effect on the election. The election will continue as though that person was still in the race. Now, that confusion and that challenge he has is what makes him delay his decision. And if he's going to change his mind, he might change his mind. But as we speak at the moment, he has made up his mind that he's going to resign. Now, what happens from there going forward?
Okay,
you know,
we'll come to that.
That's really what every Kenyan is concerned. The reason why Raila wants to run out of the country is he wants to cause what he thinks it's a storm, but unfortunately it will not be, because we have been prepared for that all through, and I think the country now has got prepared for that. He wants to raise what can be a storm, leave a situation of anarchy in the country where people are fighting, hopefully that there will be anarchy in the country, and go to a safe haven in London, watch from there if the situation still was, get his children out of this country, and then allow that kind of anarchy to go. Number two, should it not work the way he's planning, he hopes then that when he comes from there, he will come and do Baba while you are away, the kind of rally that they had, and start anarchy. Now, it is important. And as I told you today, I only came because of this importance. Article 137, 136 of the Constitution, where it talks about elections must be done in every constituency. That is the next stage. That's why you hear Junaid saying there will be no elections.
Okay,
once he pulls out of the race, because people have been, once he pulls out of the race, he hopes to cause anarchy and violence.
Now there's been a lot of questions about what goes. I mean, what next? Yeah. Okay, but let's get first Junaid's response to what you've been saying, because you've made some
allegations.
Allegations, yeah.
First of all, I want to inform Senator Murkomen that all the reasons he has given are not the reasons why there will be no election in the country. And we have the last card, and he will see it and he will know it. It's not an issue of whether he's now talking about a judgment that has not been yet done, which will be done on Tuesday, and he's saying that Okuru will be on the ballot.
I have not said he will be.
You said, you said Okuru will participate in this election. Secondly, Raila is not running out of this country. Raila has more stake in this country than Murkomen and everybody put together. He cannot go and leave this country to create anarchy or anything. You know, he doesn't need to run away. He can do anything he wants in this country, and you know he has major stake in this country, more than Jubilee. And what I want to tell Murkomen is that elections are not going to be for certain is not meant for only one party. We're not going to have an election in this country purely for Jubilee. And you can see the way they are doing the amendments in Parliament. They're creating laws basically to propel themselves and to sustain themselves in power. We've seen these kind of things happening during the Nyayo era, during the KANU era, and in the end, the will of the people, the sovereignty of the people prevailed, and KANU ended up getting out of power. Raila is not going to chicken out of this race. He's not running away, he's not withdrawing from the race. He's just trying to tell IEBC that under these circumstances, because if you listen to IEBC and Jubilee, it is business as usual. The Supreme Court ruling or the nullification of the 8th election was just like any other thing.
Okay.
They don't want to do any changes, they don't want to improve the environment of the election. This country is bigger than Raila, is bigger than Uhuru. If you think you are talking to Raila as an individual, even if we take the results that were announced by Chebukati on 8th, Raila, they said, got 6 million people, and Uhuru got 8 million people. Talk to 6 million people. Don't address Raila. Jubilee has the tendency of addressing Raila as an individual. This is not about Raila. This is about, if it's in terms of votes, after even stealing the election, we are addressing 6 million people.
Okay.
6
so
million people.
You are saying it's no reforms, no election. It's not about boycotting or withdrawing from the race.
No election, correct.
How? How do you? How can you? Okay,
You
let's. I mean,
no, how? And when we will give you the details in a week's time.
In a week's time.
In a week's time, we'll tell you.
So you're saying
we'll share with Kenyans. Yeah.
So you're saying, Honorable Junaid Mohammed, it will remain no reforms, no election. It's not about boycotting or withdrawing from the race.
It's not. I told you, if our irreducible minimums are met, even on 24th, our people are ready to go to the polls and vote.
So right now we're in a stalemate. If it goes to 25th and your irreducible minimums are not met, what happens?
Then there will be no election. And how? We will tell you in a week's time.
Honorable.
As I said, Raila has been and has demonstrated in writing, has been a person who is hungry for power. And what he's trying to do is now to do a Samsonite. What Samson did. Bring out the whole house, because you can't achieve your strength that you used to have, or it seems you cannot reach the levels of leadership that you wanted. You bring down the whole house with everybody in it. Hussein, the good thing is that God loves this country. He will not allow this country to go to the dogs. And just like my friend here has talked about, it is not about Raila. It is true. It's not about Raila. It's also not about Uhuru. Definitely, what God will do will make it possible for us to prevail through this very difficult situation. That's why I don't blame so much Raila Odinga. He's a beneficiary of a flawed decision that was made by the Supreme Court. What everyone is now thinking about at the moment is whether the Supreme Court and the courts themselves are drafted into this scheme of things, of trying to make the country ungovernable. Now, if that is true, then we are yet to see even worse. Because once this man pulls out of the race, which is, as I say, it's likely to do by Wednesday, if he pulls out of the race, it is inevitable that whatever decision IEBC will make, whatever decision Uhuru Kenyatta will make, whatever decision any person will do, will find its way into the courts. Now, if the courts are part of the scheme to make the country ungovernable, then you are yet to see a more difficult situation going forward. If, and I'm just asking myself, we gave ourselves this constitution not to make it impossible for people who spoke, 8-point-something million Kenyans who voted for Uhuru Kenyatta, 6 million Kenyans who voted for Raila Odinga, really could not have gone to the elections on 8th for us to say there are results that are lying somewhere in the box, and now we are pursuing a mirage. And that mirage is the perfectioning of the IEBC. The same Supreme Court said that they didn't find any person culpable. The same Supreme Court said that elections must be done in 60 days. Because I know for sure the answer goes back to Maraga and his team. If NASA does anything in this country with the agreement of the courts and being facilitated by the courts, because that's the only ultimate direction they are taking. With that facilitation of the courts and so forth, then the hard questions we'll have to ask ourselves hard questions going forward.
Okay. I want to look at...
Let me answer that. It's not about the judges. It's not about... This business of vilifying the judges has ended. They have done their bit and now we have moved on. If anything happens in this country going forward, it will be held responsible on IEBC. IEBC are the people who have been mandated to conduct free, fair, very viable election within the dictates and confines of the Constitution. It's not the judiciary that is going to conduct this election. It is the same IEBC that Jubilee is holding them ransom. They have divided the commission. They are holding 4 commissions aside. 3, they have made the chairman powerless. You saw the other day, the chairman appeared before a Jubilee parliamentary committee. And they just chased him away. They told him, you go and come with other people. But because they don't believe in him. Just a minute.
He did come.
He came because the chairman
because
came
that
there.
Is the law. That's parliament.
It's not law. It's not
That's
law.
parliament.
No, it's not law. The chairman is the chairman of the commission. He can come, even that committee, the spokesman of that committee is the chairman of that committee. So if the chairman speaks, all of us listen to him. So they chased away because they don't have faith in him. That is why they want to mutilate the law and make him powerless, that any commissioner can declare.
Do you have faith in the chairman?
I don't have faith in IEBC.
So,
yeah,
so what
entirely.
Business, so what
because
business,
this is a Jubilee
what
IEBC.
business are you doing to try to defend?
You have faith in the IEBC yourself?
I have faith in IEBC. I have the same faith I have for courts. You know, Hussein, let me tell you something.
My question first is, I'm saying,
do I love IEBC? No. Do I have faith that IEBC can only be the
after what happened on August 8th?
I'm just telling, not just about after what happened in August 8th.
Specifically, I'm asking after what happened on August 8th.
Yes.
Because IEBC...
do I still have faith that IEBC should conduct elections? Actually, faith is even lesser than the answer we should give. I have no choice.
No, we have a choice.
It's only IEBC which can conduct the elections.
We have a choice.
The same way we're saying, do I have faith with Supreme Court? No. Do I have a choice? No. Supreme Court tomorrow, if there is a decision that affects Murkomen that can only be rendered by Supreme Court, I must appear before Supreme Court.
Based on the evidence that is provided.
It doesn't matter whether they provide which evidence, I will appear before Supreme Court despite the fact that I disagree with them. So that's what I'm saying. The problem we are having here is that you have one person, we don't agree with the decision of Supreme Court and how they made that decision, but we will abide by that decision. NASA may not agree with the composition of IEBC. They may not like the face of Chiloba. They may not like the face of... Because on what basis? Let me ask you, and I asked that question last week. On what basis would one pick an individual in IEBC and say, you bungled the elections? When Supreme Court never said it, when there was no trial process, when there was no investigation to come to that person? Do you, and I want to repeat this question, do you believe that that 7-year-old Chiloba is the only reason why Tinga doesn't want to come to election? My friend, come on. That's not a reason. The real reason why it doesn't want to...
The question is asking is why do you choose one person or the second person or the third person and not the... Hussein, I mean, how did you arrive at that?
Yeah, you see, Hussein, the issue is not about having faith or the composition of IEBC. You see, IEBC are the people mandated constitutionally to conduct elections, not the judiciary. So when they bungle elections, you go to the judiciary for arbitration. And the judiciary decides. And the same judiciary said they should conduct fresh elections. Now, Jubilee tells us every day that they have not pinpointed anybody who committed any crime in IEBC. So who bungled the elections? Did the elections bungle itself?
Have you pinpointed? Why did you pinpoint a few?
Because...
On what basis did you pinpoint
because
the few?
Those are the people who are responsible in those departments that were handling the election. You see, if today you commit a story here criminally, you will be held liable. Let me tell you something, Hussein. You know, this is gerrymandering. You know, you cannot tell us that the court nullified the elections and said the elections were not conducted within the Constitution. Then you say, but nobody committed a crime in IEBC.
It was not me who said it, was the court.
No, give me time. Now,
but the court, Honorable Murkomen, was not investigating. But it's not an investigating body in terms of determining what happened.
No, let me explain to you.
The same court, we have a problem that they never investigated the results of the election.
No, you don't need.
But they abide by the decision.
They investigated.
That court came to the conclusion that no one was culpable individually.
That court was not a criminal court. That was an election court. They were to determine. Give me time, Murkomen. They were supposed to determine whether the elections were conducted as per the law or not. They have discovered that the elections were not conducted within the constitution.
So
which criminal court?
No.
Which criminal court found that?
Just let him finish. Let him finish. Honorable
the DPP,
Junaid,
listen, the DPP has written to the investigative bodies to do investigations. The other day, 2 years ago, when people were mentioned in Parliament, ministers, they stepped aside when investigations were ordered against them.
Raila has not stepped aside. He's being investigated.
No, Raila is not. Raila is not.
He's being investigated.
Honorable Junaid.
He's a candidate. He should step aside as a candidate.
Let us not cheapen the
Let's have
debate.
a civil conversation.
Let us not
Honorable
cheapen the
Junaid,
debate.
Honorable Junaid, my question to you is, you said it wasn't a criminal court to determine the culpability of any person in IBC.
Correct. Absolutely.
So how have you determined the culpability of a few in IBC?
This is how we have determined. We wrote to the DPP. The DPP has ordered for investigations through the investigative arms of government. When how do you investigate somebody who's in office, like Chiloba? How do you investigate somebody?
So the DPP is investigating the IBC.
They should vacate office.
Yeah. All of them.
All of them.
Regardless.
If they are clear.
So it's not about the ones that you're saying only. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, of course.
All of them. Okay, Honorable, I have a question for you.
Let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. Hussein, we're not going to buy the narrative that is being sold by Jubilee, that nobody in IEBC committed any crime. Then that means, then devils came from the skies and manipulated the elections at Bomas of Kenya. Somebody in IEBC stole elections for Jubilee.
Did you believe that?
Was the elections manipulated? No.
Oh, yeah.
Was the election,
how would you determine that?
Was the election bungled? No. So even this discussion, because as a matter of fact now,
then why
it's
we
in public domain that the Supreme Court came to a conclusion that was misguided. But that aside, as I say, no,
you have to respond.
Let me go to this
Junaid's
question. Let me ask Junaid's question. Junaid says that the Supreme Court was an election court. Therefore, they never had to find whether someone is culpable. It doesn't say there is any criminal court that found anybody culpable. So in the first phase of his argument, that one is cancelled. Number two, he now talks about a letter they wrote to DPP to investigate. The same DPP is investigating Raila Odinga. The same DPP is investigating James Orengo. And is also investigating Musalia Mudavadi.
They are not public.
Hold on.
Yeah.
They are seeking the highest office in the land. By now, Raila Odinga should be stepping aside as a candidate for presidential elections.
From which office?
For any presidential election, because the consequences of his investigation, if he's found culpable to have participated in bungling elections, Raila himself, actually is worse than Chiloba. Okay. Because he's seeking the highest office in the land.
Can I explain?
But Honorable Murkomen,
let me put this clear. People who are holding the highest office in this country were in ICC. They never stepped aside. Okay.
So why you say Chiloba should step aside? The same argument.
Gentlemen, again, let's have a civil conversation. Honorable Murkomen, my question to you was very simple. You are saying IBC has not done anything. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying
that they have not. Nobody bungled the election. Is that what you're saying? How do you determine that yourself?
That's why I said the courts have said the elections were bungled. I believe that the elections were not. Yeah.
So you don't believe
the court? But we will live with the decision of the court. So the court also came to the conclusion. Let him
respond.
Relax. Junaid, you know you are pulling out of the race. So why are you so excited about elections? Let us, those of us who want to go for election, have a discussion about elections. I mean, you have this argument. I don't believe that the elections were bungled. I believe the elections were free, fair, and credible. I believe also that IBC never lost any document, that the documents were in proper submission to the Supreme Court, and that the confusion around this verification of results was came back. However, and I must add, because the court said so, we will have to abide by that decision. Because the court said so.
It's an institution, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
And it's because it's not about what you believe or I believe.
It doesn't matter. So, because the courts. Number two, that the same courts came to the conclusion that they could not find anybody culpable. Hey. The same courts also came to the conclusion that IEBC
Can I say something?
will have to conduct elections within 60 days.
Fine. The commission, isn't it?
While I abide by what the courts decided in the part of the judgment that doesn't favor me, The other parts of the judgment that doesn't favor NASA is not better for them.
But here is Chebukati who said himself he will invest, they will do internal investigations, come out with something.
Absolutely.
You are now saying you think IBC did nothing and they should go, let me finish my question.
Yeah.
And they should hold the election as they are right now. That is the commission. Are you saying then there's not even importance of having this, the Director of Public Prosecutions investigations?
No.
They're not even important.
I'm not saying that because...
But you're saying IBC should conduct the election as it is.
I am saying as it is, IBC never did anything wrong. That's my belief.
So you believe? So should they be investigated?
Now, should they be investigated? Our friends have requested for investigation. If they found in the investigation that there was a clerk somewhere who did this, or there was or whatever, there is a. Assuming even they found that Chebukati committed an offense, there is a procedure for his removal, and that will follow.
You see what Senator Murkomen is trying to do? He wants to prosecute the case that was at the Supreme Court here on Citizen TV. That this form was not signed. That is now is behind us. We don't want to know how the case went. There was a decision of the Supreme Court that we must abide by. In that decision, the Supreme Court said the elections were not conducted in accordance with the law and the Constitution. Irregularities and illegalities. Now, those people who committed those illegalities are in IEBC as we speak now. Here, Jubilee is telling you that there is no problem at IEBC. We have faith in them. There were no illegalities that were committed. That means Jubilee is telling you that we don't believe in the ruling of the Supreme Court. We don't accept it. We don't trust, we don't believe in what the Supreme Court did. How do we move forward as a country when when we say that our elections were stolen after the general election? Jubilee told us there are constitutional institutions that you need to go, like the Supreme Court. We went there, the Supreme Court decided, now the Supreme Court is bad.
So there are investigations that you called for.
Yes.
Why don't you just wait for them? Because it's
why should somebody be in office when he's being investigated?
Hussein.
No, let me finish. Let me finish, Hussein.
Let him finish.
Give me a few minutes, Hussein. I've been listening into Senator. You see, Hussein, if we allow IEBC to conduct elections the same way they conducted on 8th of August, the result will still be the same. There will be no difference.
I want to look at some laws here, and I'll start with the Constitution, what NASA has been talking about, because many people are concerned about the uncertainty, and we'll talk about finally if there's a solution again to this. Article 138 of the Constitution. Procedure presidential election, if you can look at that. If 2 or more candidates for president are nominated, an election shall be held in each constituency. Of course, we've heard from sections of opposition really talking about that law. But let's take a look also at the proposed amendments. New section 86A that Jubilee are introducing. These are the amendments that are being ironed out right now before a report is tabled in Parliament. We'll see if that is how it will look finally on Tuesday or not. But 4 there says an eligible candidate for an election pursuant to Article 143 of the Constitution may withdraw from the election by notice in writing to the Commission, and A, where there are more than 2 remaining candidates in the election, after the withdrawal, the election shall proceed as scheduled. B, where there's only 1 candidate who remains after the withdrawal, the remaining candidate shall be declared elected forthwith as the president-elect without any election being held. We'll see what happens Tuesday if that is the amendment that will pass. But from what you're saying, this does not even apply to you because you're not withdrawing.
Yes, and secondly, when I told you Jubilee are making these amendments to sustain themselves in power, is precisely the writings on the wall. They are telling you, if so-and-so leaves the rest, we are going to be sworn in. If so-and-so, how do you legislate for yourself so that you can be in power perpetually?
Hussein, first of all, this is not the first time that Kenya is legislating to accommodate lacunas in law. In 2007-2008, it took only 1 day for Parliament to amend the Constitution to accommodate Raila Odinga. That's why the new Constitution made it impossible to be amended. At least it takes 8 months, at the very least, to amend it. Number 2, as I told you, we are prepared for all the scenarios. As I told you, from 1st of September, we are prepared for a scenario where Raila Odinga will drop out of the race. That might happen this week, and I dare him take that route. Number 2, we are prepared for a scenario where they will block 4 counties. I think they can only manage about 4 counties, constituents in 4 counties not to vote, because that's what you are reading in Article 138. But people who read Article 138 don't read Article 136. which says that the president shall be elected by registered voters in a national election conducted according to the constitution. It's a national election. It's not a constituency elections or a county elections. We are prepared for that. We're already, prepared for that situation. We're also prepared for a situation where they will cause violence, and intimidate people so that they cannot come to vote. I think I want to assure the nation that we are handling a very delicate situation. The people who have occasioned this situation, we all know them. But what's important is to ensure that our country can cross this bridge on 26th of this month. I strongly believe that there are evil forces that are working so hard and hoping that there can be violence in this country so that some people can access to power. Please, I listen to
just make a point. Yeah.
But I want to tell this nation, this is one nation that is under one God. And I want to give hope and assurance to everybody that it will not happen. This country is going through a difficult time for a very short period of time. There are a bit of challenges here, bits and pieces of challenges in terms of interpretation of the Constitution, but believe me, by 26th of this month, we will cross that bridge.
Will the amendments coming, on Tuesday or thereabout?
The reason why...
have you decided whether, as Jubilee, because you talked about this, I think, a week or two ago, that they're going to come into effect immediately before the repeat election or after?
No, for us...
Has that decision been made?
No, Parliament, as I told you, even me, even as majority leader, cannot control the members if they want to do certain amendments. So even the law itself may not look as it is proposed at the moment. It may reach, by the time it ends, it looks different. Number two, as to whether it comes into effect immediately depends on many factors, because once Parliament passes law, it is the president to determine whether he will put his signature immediately or it will come later. Number two is that a person might come with an amendment along the week, or I don't even know whether it will pass this week or next week, but someone might come with an amendment that says that this law should come into effect at a particular period of time. So we will cross that bridge. Let me assure also the country that we are Parliament. And when Parliament is functioning, it has listened to the people of Kenya, but also to listen to the voice of those people who are legislating in the House, which, as I am very proud of, is a representation of the whole country.
Okay. Foreign missions, of course, is finally for both of you. You'll respond. You'll respond to that. But as you respond as well, foreign missions have been talking to us, saying both NASA and Jubilee should drop their hardline stances. NASA should drop the reducible minimums. Jubilee should drop the amendments. What would it take for both of you to come up with a framework for the repeat poll as you wind up? Junaid, and as you respond to Emir.
Hussein, from what I heard from the senator saying, he's saying there are people who have put us in this situation, and he's talking about the Supreme Court. First, I want to tell Jubilee that if you want this country to remain stable and remain among the civilized society in the world, we must respect the judiciary as an institution. It's an arm of government that should be respected. We know that they have majority in Parliament. They can manipulate things the way they want, but the judiciary must be respected. Secondly, I heard him balkanizing the country and saying that they may not be, they will make sure that there are no votes in 4 counties or 3 counties. 6 million people, after even stealing, who voted for Raila don't stay in 4 counties or 3 counties. They stay in all over the Republic of Kenya. They stay in the 47 counties of this country. So to balkanize the country and say those 3 counties or 4 counties will not vote with, that is beside the point. Thirdly, I want to beseech Jubilee that this country is bigger than Jubilee. You know, when you are a member of Parliament or a senator, or you may end up traveling to your constituency or your county alone, but sometimes it's good to take time and travel around the country. This country has a larger population than Jubilee, and they should be very careful on how they engage them and how they deal with them. Receiving a few defectors, 1 or 2, is not enough to show a picture that this country is united. And I want to also tell Jubilee that we are not pulling out of the race as they are thinking, but we are telling them that there will be no election, because there is no need to have an election that will be conducted the same way that they are going to, that was done on 8th. And he talks about Article 138(2). It's for a fact that elections must be done in presidential elections must happen in, if there are more than 2 candidates, it shall happen. It's mandatory in every constituency. And those nations, those constituencies are part of the nation. They fall under the nation. The nation is a republic, and then you have constituencies as units to conduct the elections. I want to say this lastly.
Yeah, is there a way out of this?
The way out of this is to Jubilee to come down from the tower that they are in there, come down to the ground floor so that they can find us where we are. We can sit with them, let them look at our reducible minimums. They are basically meant to our reducible minimums are basically meant to make the election free and fair and accountable and transparent. We don't need to win. We are not putting the reducible minimum so that we must win. We are putting the reducible minimum so that we can have a good election. That if Jubilee wins, we are okay with it. If we win, we are okay with it. But we are seeing a regime that is hell-bent to sustain power by all means. And that's why he's telling you, we are prepared for this, we are prepared for that. Sovereignty belongs to the people. You can be prepared with 1 million police and army, but so long as the people of the country are not with you, that preparedness is irrelevant. It makes no sense.
Finally, way forward.
First of all, I want to make it clear that we are prepared. The Bible says, too much is given, much is expected. Kenyans expect more from Jubilee because they elected more Jubilee members of parliament. They elected the president from Jubilee. They elected MCAs from Jubilee.
When did they elect president?
They elected governors from Jubilee. From 2013 to 2017, they both elected Jubilee. So the point is this, that they expect much from us. The stability of the country, the economy which is suffering, the tourism sector which is suffering, the shilling which is suffering. Kenyans are looking up to us, and I want to say to every Kenyan that we will do everything possible to ensure that our country remains stable. We know that our colleagues on the other end do not have greater responsibility. They can do anything and everything to make this country be in chaos as a measure or a mechanism to negotiate for power. But we will not allow that. And when we talk about tyranny, it is time now, we call it as it is, that the tyranny of minority cannot hold the country ransom. And we will cross that bridge. Number two is that I want to assure, I want to confirm to Junet that there is every clause of the Constitution for every eventuality that they are thinking about. Even trying to run out of the race, even causing violence in a field, a football match, as a matter of fact, leads to a situation where the match will be abandoned. And if one player pulls out from the game or one team pulls out from the game, the rules of the game, like I saw my friend Amenazir saying, is that as a matter of fact, you pull out of the football match, the referee will come to the field, he will start the match, and he will award 3 points to the person who appeared before the pitch to play. So we in Jubilee, as you can see, we are busy respecting the people of Kenya campaigning. We are preparing ourselves for 26. If we reach the field and we find that our competitors are not there, we expect our 3 points and we move forward. We take our country forward.
Okay. We'll have to leave it at that. Jeff, very briefly.
Yeah, but what I wanted to say lastly is that, you see, Jubilee thinks that they are in government now. Jubilee is a caretaker government as we speak now until a proper election is conducted. So don't talk so authoritatively when your incumbency is temporary. It is a temporary incumbency waiting for validation in a general election. So you don't say we are prepared to do this, we are prepared to do that. There are limitations. You can't even fire and hire anybody at the moment. There are limitations that were given by the Constitution.
I think we've had that discussion before.
So please.
I think there is a question you asked Hussein about why we cannot come together and sort out these reducible minimums and so forth. We told Kenyans, and you saw the Deputy President when we went to meet with the IBC, we have no conditions. We have no conditions. We have no condition for Supreme Court. We have no condition with IBC. If IBC has issues with NASA, they would sort it out. They are the ones actually who are.
But you're amending laws. You're amending laws.
Well, amending laws, as I said, amendment of laws, Junet, is part and parcel of that process. We will deal with it in the right place. They think that the reducible minimum, the 11 reducible minimum before they added Safaricom and these amendments, were actually there way before we talk about amendment of laws. And I think IBC and NASA can be able to sort out that issue. For us, we are ready and prepared for the elections.
Okay, just for the record as we wind up, from Dennis Onyango, that is a Raila Odinga spokesman, he's going for only 3 days and he's going for a conference in the UK. Because you were speculating, saying he's leaving on Wednesday or Monday, and it's a calculated move to withdraw from the...
He will go on Wednesday after attempting to withdraw.
That has been disputed, of course,
yes.
by that, and that has been disputed by...
And that's official now.
That is official from Dennis Onyango, that is their spokesman.
Not from Amongari.
Junaid, let's make it clear. I said he's going to out of the country on Wednesday. By that Wednesday, he's preparing to withdraw.
No.
If he changes his mind, it's because he had Murkomen speaking.
No.
Okay, we'll leave it at that, gentlemen.
No.
Let's see what happens this week. Very interesting. But thank you so much for making time for us. Honorable Junaid Mohammed and Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is GamePlan2017 on Twitter. Text us on 22422. We'll look at a sample of your tweets now as we wind up. Right, Sarafin says, it's time to end all this rhetoric on politics. Both Jubilee and NASA should amicably end this. Dr. Deno Karim says, Baba will not participate in the elections. A presidential candidate cannot leave for a public lecture abroad just 18 days to elections. Ken Olentaya, he is free to visit any country he wishes to. The only thing needed is free, fair, and credible elections. Viongo Mwangi, campaigns should cease. We need to approach all electoral issues with honesty, tolerance, and mutual respect. And Situ Aka says NASA should compromise on their reducible minimums. Demonstrations will not solve anything. Let them try dialogue. And finally, Emmanuel Kilika, Jubilee game plan is with or without elections. Uhuruto will be president in 2017 and 2022. No elections without reforms. Well, thank you so much for watching and for your feedback. I'm Hussein Mohammed. Have a good night.